Forget all the headlines you've seen about which AI model is the smartest. The real AI war, well, it's not about that at all. It's a hidden economic battle, a clash of titans between Google and Nvidia. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and break down who's actually winning and why the answer is probably going to surprise you.
All right, just a quick heads up before we dive in. This explainer is purely for informational purposes. It is absolutely not investment advice. Okay, let's get to it.
So, let's start with the big question. Who is really winning the AI war? You might think you know the answer, but the reality, it's way more complex than it looks on the surface.
Yeah, if you're just scrolling through the news, you'd think the winner is just whoever builds the fastest chip. It seems like it's all about performance benchmarks, teraflops, which is really just a fancy way of measuring computing speed, and, who can train the next big model the quickest.
But what if we're all looking at the wrong scoreboard? What if this whole battle isn't really about raw speed at all, but about something way more fundamental, something like the basic economics of AI?
So let's reframe this entire conflict. This is not just a hardware race, it's a complete clash of business models. And it really all comes down to that classic gold rush analogy. Are you the one selling the shovels, or are you the one out there digging for the gold? And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the conflict. Nvidia, they're the ultimate shovel seller. Their whole goal is to sell super expensive, high-margin GPUs to literally everyone trying to strike it rich with AI. But Google is a gold miner. Their entire business is built on services that need a ton of AI computation. So for them to win, the shovels, those computer chips, they need to be as dirt cheap as possible. Their goals are in total opposition.
So, how has Nvidia managed to stay on top and keep its prices so ridiculously high? Well, it's all because of their brilliant and, let's be honest, very expensive for their customers, competitive advantage, a kind of golden cage called CUDA. You see, CUDA isn't just some piece of software. You have to understand, it's an entire ecosystem that AI developers have spent more than a decade building their work on top of. Now, this makes NVIDIA's GPUs incredibly powerful, sure, but it also makes switching to a competitor extremely difficult and super risky. It's the ultimate software lock-in.
This lock-in creates what the source analysis we're looking at calls a holdup. Because the entire industry is basically built on CUDA, NVIDIA has this immense pricing power. It forces everyone, I'm talking giants like Microsoft and Amazon, to pay a premium NVIDIA tax. But here's the key part. This advantage, it only lasts as long as there isn't a real alternative.
And that brings us right to Google's counterattack. See, Google isn't trying to beat CUDA head-on. No, instead, they're using a powerful economic weapon, their own custom-built silicon, which creates what's called a price ceiling on the entire market.
So, what exactly is a price ceiling? Well, because Google designs and uses its own chips, its tensor processing units, or TPUs, they have a fundamentally lower cost to run their AI models, period. So they can offer their services, like Gemini, for a lower price than anyone who's stuck paying that NVIDIA tax. This basically puts a cap on how much competitors can charge and puts them in a really tough spot. You can see the effect right here. It's pretty stark. Competitors running on NVIDIA hardware have a high cost for every token, you can think of that as just a piece of a word, that their AI generates. But Google, running on its custom TPUs, has a much lower cost. This forces everyone else into this impossible choice. Either lose a bunch of money to compete on price, or lose all your customers to Google. And this is where it gets really interesting. It's a total paradox. NVIDIA's incredibly successful strategy is actually creating an unintended and potentially fatal consequence. It's forcing its biggest customers to become its biggest rivals. I mean, this quote from the source analysis just nails it. The very thing that makes NVIDIA so profitable, its massive hardware margins, is the single biggest reason that companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and others are now pouring billions and billions of dollars into developing their own custom AI chips. They literally can't afford not to. It's a textbook prisoner's dilemma, really. If a customer stays loyal to NVIDIA, they're stuck with these crippling operating costs, and they just can't compete with Google on price. But if they invest in building their own chips, they can slash their costs and actually survive. And for NVIDIA, that means eventually losing its biggest customers. It's become a strategic necessity for them to break free. Okay, so if this war isn't about speed, then what's the real scoreboard? How do we actually track who's winning this thing? Well, we have to forget the old metrics completely. Here's what it all boils down to. The single most important number to watch in this whole game is not some performance score. It's the price per token. That is the real-world cost of using AI, and it tells you everything you need to know about who has the cost advantage and ultimately who's in control of the market. And according to the analysis, there's a magic number, a kind of tripwire we need to watch for. That number is $2 per 1 million tokens. So why that number? What's so special about $2? Because when the price for the best AI models drops below this point, it signals a massive shift. It means the market is moving out of a discovery phase, where performance is everything, and into a utility phase, where cost efficiency at a massive scale is the only thing that matters.
The best way to think about it is like two different zones. In Zone A, the discovery phase, you're training the next big breakthrough model, and speed is absolutely everything. Nvidia and its whole CUDA ecosystem, they're the king here. But in Zone B, the utility phase, you're just running proven models for millions of users. And here, cost is king. And this is where Google's TPUs and all that other custom silicon have the decisive advantage.
So where does all this leave us? What's the final takeaway from this whole thing? What does it all mean for the future of AI? It really boils down to this single, powerful idea. Nvidia isn't just competing against other chip makers. No, it's in a race against an idea, the inevitable commoditization of AI compute. Its entire business model is threatened by the push to make AI cheaper and cheaper, a push that's being led by its own biggest customers. Which leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending question to think about. Is the very thing that made Nvidia a trillion-dollar company, its incredible pricing power and those massive profit margins, is that now its single greatest weakness? Is it actually fueling the fire that could one day consume its own empire? That is what we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us.